Thank you, Chief, for this opportunity, and thank you, Principal Lori McKenna of the Holyoke High School North Campus. The questions that I have relate to is safety, security at the schools. Um, um, as you know, there has been a searching of students and of their bags when they enter the high school. Could you please tell us why that policy was implemented?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, that's not a policy. That's just a process that we do to make sure that our students are safe. And I just want to reiterate that that in my mind, and there's only one thing that's more important than making sure our students are learning, and that's the safety of our students and staff when they're in our building. So it's not necessarily a policy. I mean, but those instances do come up in certain situations. We've all been made aware of some of the atrocious things that have happened across the nation. And I will say that it is not like random searches. Whenever if we get a threat, we immediately work with the local law enforcement um, agencies to see how to appropriately respond to that threat. So let's say there's graffiti on the wall that is threatening that something's going to happen, or if there's a threatening Facebook or Instagram post that gets reported to us, our first step is to contact local law enforcement and work with them to figure out the appropriate action. And then if it is determined to be a credible threat, we will take appropriate action. If it's deemed not to be a credible threat by the police department, then we may do something like this out of an abundance of caution, which means that we would we would close off the back entrance and ask every student to come in through the main entrance. And when they do come in through the main entrance, we would be searching their bags. And I believe they would be walking through metal detectors. Is that right, Lori?
Yes.
Yeah. At no point are like students patted down or anything like that. They might get wanded. If the initial metal detector went off, they might get wanded. But it's all, in an effort to keep our schools and our students safe and our staff safe. And we take, these threats very seriously, even if they're not deemed credible. We have to take appropriate action. And I will, the other thing I want to mention is that this last time that we did it, and when we do it, we usually send the communication to families. So for obvious reasons, it's not like we tell them exactly when it's gonna happen, but we do tell them that we received a threat that was deemed non-credible, and that out of an abundance of caution, over the next week or so, we will be doing a normal security checkpoint as kids are entering the building. We don't tell them exactly what day, but we tell them it's coming so that families know why it's happening, and they're not super surprised on the day that we are implementing it and working with local law enforcement. Lori, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, but that's
Well, I would like to ask Principal McKenna,
yeah.
um, because you are in the building and we know about the atrocities that are committed in places, including schools, by the shooters. What is it like then to, for you and your team as administrators to have to balance that? We love you students being here. And as the chief has said, that school needs to be a joyful place. And for that to happen, it needs to be a safe place also. But what kind of tension does that create then among you and your team when you know, oh, wait a minute, something happened someplace, or we have a threat? And then how do you manage then your emotions to at one o sea, to be uh, comforting to the students, like it's okay,
Mhm.
and also to know there may be danger.
Yeah, I would say for the most part, students have been appreciative of them. I think in the world that we live in and the things that have happened in schools, I want kids to feel safe in this school. I want them to feel like they spend almost as much time in here as they do as their home. I want them to feel like this is their home and they belong and that they're safe. And when there is a threat that is made, whether it's deemed credible or not, I think it puts people on edge a little bit just because you just never know. And so I think students feel um students feel a little bit better when they know that they're coming into school. And if there was something that was said about that day and there's been a search that's been conducted, I think most students do feel safer. Students comply. I have to say, we have a really strong team here of adults that care about kids, both administrators and teachers, faculty and staff. Um, they know that we care about them. And I think they see it, they understand that in the world that we live in, there are some times that we need to do these, as it may not feel the greatest. I think they do know that kids do feel safer. Kids have said to us, like, this was the right thing to do. So yeah, for the most part, that's exactly what students say.
When students are being searched, Principal McKenna, is it gender to gender? So if, or is it like any,
Yeah, so it's pretty much like any adults that can help with it so that we can move it as quickly as we can. So it's the entire administrative team, it's our counseling team. And then if there's some additional people that can support some of our adjustment counselors, kids pretty much line up. They put their bags on the table and like there's about 10 people at that table who will search the bag. Kids empty out their pockets, they put their stuff on that table and they walk through. There's never hands that are put on a student. So it's usually like one or two people that will wand if necessary. If when they walk through that metal detector, they need to use the wand, they grab their bag and they go about their day.
if there is, let's say, in a girl's backpack, something is found, uh, that- something, I mean, is that a woman then who will talk to the girl and say, hey, listen, we found mace in your backpack.
Yes.
We know that you have it for your own security when you walk home.
Yes.
How does that conversation go?
So that would be conversations that an administrator at that point, it might be myself or another administrator. We try to do it discreetly because we don't really want to put a student on blast in front of everybody else who's in that line. So it's done pretty discreetly. The student will make their, continue on down the hall and the administrator will go into the office and talk with that student and have a conversation. We will make a phone call home to kind of inform about that as well, but it's handled in a discreet way. And then we communicate with the student in that way as well as the family.
Chief, what happens if somebody is found to have like 3 joints?
Yeah, that is a complete violation of our student handbook, and it'll be handled appropriately um, depending on what's found in the bag. So I, I, I mean, I don't want to be that specific, but we don't allow kids to have marijuana in our school. So we usually, conduct call home and conduct an investigation, and the parent has an opportunity to talk to the staff about what we found and to talk to their student, and then we take appropriate action, um, whether that be some sort of restorative process or if that's a suspension. It all depends on the nature of what is found in that bag. We have, during these checkpoints, we have in some cases found some things that we did not want in the school, and we handle those on an individual case by case basis, but it's all handled and aligned with how we enforce the student handbook and what we expect students to do and not do in school.
And then so the concern among some people is this creating a pipeline into the prison system if a student has things that do not belong in the school, whether it be a knife that's more than 3 inches long, whether it be marijuana. Um, how does the school system keep the student in the school system instead of, oh, this is a violation not only of our policies, but the law in general. You know, this is, you're not supposed to bring this stuff into public places.
It would have to be egregious. So like if we find something and it's not like we get law enforcement involved every time we find something in there, if it's not necessary. But yeah, if we found a loaded gun on a student, there will be, we will be working with local law enforcement. It's not acceptable at all. And you know, I'll reiterate that there's only one thing more important than our students learning, and that's the safety of our students and staff. And if a student is bringing a loaded gun into school, that will immediately be handled by law enforcement. At that point, that is out of our hands. But for, there is this misnomer out there because we have a school resource officer that's creating a prison to pipeline, and I just don't agree that that's the case. That's not how our school resource officers are used. If students get into fights or disagreements or anything that is school related, the building administrators, they handle that. That's not something that the police get involved unless there's, the safety of everyone's well-being is at stake. And we need to get law enforcement involved. But resource officers aren't there to discipline kids. They're there to build community and to make sure that we have a safe environment, especially from outside intruders. We have a great resource officer at the Dean campus that, even started a driving a learner permit program on his own time after school. He really is an extension of the leadership team. It's not, kids don't feel like they have a law enforcement agent there. They feel like they have a counselor there, a friend there, somebody that they can talk to. And that's how I feel resource officers should be. They're not there to arrest kids for things that our school leadership is handling. Lori, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say our school resource officer here at North, you see him fist bumping just about every kid who comes into the school every day. There's some kids when they're having a tough day, they're like, hey, can I talk to Officer Rivera? He's definitely seen as an ally, as somebody who's there to support. If a student's having a problem with something in the community, he might be the one that they will ask to talk to. So he's definitely seen, as somebody who is there to support for sure.
This seems very different, Chief and Principal. The last time something like this was tried to be implemented by then Principal Mahoney, at that point there was a lot of pushback from the community, inside the schools, from the city itself, because it seemed punitive. It seemed so pipeline. And from what you're both saying, this is about safety and keeping learning a joyful experience rather than fearing for your life one way or another.
Yeah. The situation or what you're talking about is very different than what we're doing now.
Yeah.
That very much was like a proposed plan to do random searches, which means that not everybody is getting searched, and it's not a result of a particular incident or a threat. It would be very random. And I know, I trust our leaders and I trust our staff. But I understand why the community pushed back on that. Like, how are you determining random, right? Who are you selecting? And how are you making sure that you're not just picking people that you have a bias over? So I totally understand why there was pushback, but this is very different.
Yeah.
This is not random stop and search. We inform the family members we're doing it. We don't tell them the specific date that we're doing that. And we work with local law enforcement, and it happens with everybody. And again, it's usually a response to either a threat or, one thing I wanted to say, like, students know when there's a threat, right? They often know before we do, right? So they're often the ones coming like, oh my God, I saw something in the bathroom and I'm scared. Can you guys check it out? Or I saw this on Facebook and I'm scared. Can you check it out? Or hey, that thing happened in Texas last week and I'm scared. Like, what are we doing? So, it's very different than just randomly stopping somebody in the hallway and pulling them aside and checking them at your own discretion. This is all about safety. This is all about students feeling safe and staff feeling safe and making sure that our learning environment is safe.
Among my last questions, and also to Principal McKenna, this is obviously a different era than the era we all grew up in. And uh, how do you manage that? It's like here we are in a city where on almost every corner drugs are being sold. This is a city that has so many cannabis businesses. So in a way it signals it's okay, marijuana is okay because we're allowing businesses to produce it and sell it. Um, how do you manage that on a day-to-day basis that it's like you're almost in a danger zone and some days are super peaceful and some days there's a threat?
Yeah, it can be challenging for sure. Like times are very different than when I was a student at Holyoke High School for sure. And the world has changed. I think, the fact that, marijuana is something that is accepted, I think is something that's tough to deal with when you're trying to support teens, as well as social media. I think social media is something that has become something that is very challenging. I think what you need to do though in a school is you need to really create a space that, every student feels like they belong, that you prioritize, like you're here for a purpose. You're here to get that diploma. You are here to get yourself smarter and get educated. And we are here to help you do that. And then think about what do you want for the future? Great. Let's help us. We're going to help you get there. And I think it's really, letting kids know that you love them and identifying and connecting with them for who they are and accepting them for who they are and supporting them in every step of the way. And I think it's getting to know kids and who they are and what makes them tick, and what upsets them, and then really trying to be able to work with them in that way. So I just think, it's very much about creating a school that feels like love is important. And I think that's how you build that community and you build that trust. And to what Superintendent Soto said, like, I'm really proud of students. If they see something, they say something. Sometimes like the scariest person in the building, unfortunately, sometimes can be the principal just because of the title. And I can't tell you like how proud I am of kids coming and saying things to me, as well as other people on the admin team or teachers. So that shows that there is that trust that is there. Could we get better? Absolutely. I think you can always be better, but I think that trusting environment is there.
Yeah.
And finally, oh, sorry, Chief.
Can I just add to that?
Please.
I just, this really reminds me, if you really want somebody to articulate the education that our kids get in Holyoke, go listen to the mayor's speech at graduation. He talks about our students' ability to persevere and what growing up in Holyoke means. And he does it in a way that's inspiring. So, in Holyoke, our students do get firsthand experience with, people that are dealing with drug addiction or poverty, but that makes them stronger. So I don't want people in the community to think that like our students reflect all of these things that they see in the streets. We have so many students that, yes, deal with a lot of those issues, see a lot of those issues, and learn what not to do in life and learn to be empathetic and learn how to persevere. And that's really, we have such amazing students in Holyoke Public Schools that go through, grow up at an early age. I remember my mom in 8th grade telling my science teacher when he was trying to convince her that I was making a bad decision and going to Dean. My mom said to him, "My son's a grown man and he can make his own decisions." And I was in 8th grade. I don't think I would say that about my son, but yeah, our kids are they persevere. They're tough despite their surroundings and despite what's around them. So,
Principal McKenna and Chief Soto, thank you so much for your time and to talk about this subject. I'm very grateful to both of you.
Thank
thank
you.
you.